Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to explore some deck pairings with the White Numen Tarot, some Oracle deck pairings to be specific. And I really enjoy, just finding which decks in my collection look great together. So I hope that you guys enjoy this video as much as I'm going to have fun, trying to mix and match. Now, I recently got this deck, so I haven't yet found a deck pair that I want to work with consistently with this deck. And I've kind of just been using it on its own, but I do have some tarot decks that I feel would look great with this deck, so I have picked out the ones from my collection that I think would look good paired together. So the first Oracle deck that I would like to explore as a pairing with this tarot deck is the Prism Oracle. And I wanted to start with this because it's really simple and it goes with a lot of decks I have. So I just feel like it is gonna be a really nice match based off just the simplicity and the colors only. So as we can see, the art for this Oracle deck is really simple. It's really easy to pair with anything because it doesn't really clash art-wise. I enjoy the colors in this Oracle deck though, and that is the main focus for the pairing, and how simple the keyword is. So it's not something that's really complicated to look at. It's not visually complicated, and I think that this pair, or this Oracle deck in general, is good for focusing on specific colors within the cards, bringing out some more of that energy that we should be focusing on by enhancing it with whatever color is on that Oracle card. So we have this really dark, well, from my end it looks like a slightly brown black, and we find this color in here. So I would consider this as like the shadow perhaps of confidence in regards to these two cards, because we have these shadowy elements that match this color. So we could focus more on how that darkness is playing out in the card. Consequently, could also bring out some more aspects of a tarot card's meaning. So if we have like a heavily red spread, it would point to that fire, that energy of the situation. Or if we have a bunch of blues, the water aspects. But yeah, I think that this is a simple and easy pairing, and I would even use this with another Oracle deck as well because of how easy it is on the eyes in regards to the artwork. So I would probably add something a bit more dynamic to get some more layers. So this is the first deck, and I think that I'm a fan of this. I like the combination of the colors and the additional layer it provides in regards to the aspects those colors will align with in a card. So yeah, I'm a fan of this pairing, and we'll move on to the next deck, which is the Modern Nirvana Oracle. Now, I don't know how these two are gonna play together. I'm hoping that they look nice because of the colors and a bit of the art as well. Okay, so right off the bat, I am a fan of how the art looks together. I feel like it is an art style that flows well with each other. And I also like the colors in both of these decks, how they play together. And I also love how simple that keyword is. So we really get to play with, you know, how we interpret it. Oh, this card is so beautiful. One of my favorite cards. Yeah, I think the art works really, really well together. It's not too similar, but it's not too different either. It meets really well in the middle. And I am a big fan of the color palette of both of these decks together. I think I would enjoy reading with these. One thing that does throw me off a little bit though is that the cards are a bit creamer, a bit warmer compared to the cool tone of these cards. The border, that is, like the actual card color. But that's not that big of a deal, to be honest, because it works really, really well. Based on the images, and they both have similar borders, so visually I would say that they work really well together. In regards to reading with them, I think because the keyword is so simple, it is really more about playing off of that keyword and maybe kind of building a story around it. Whereas with the previous deck, it would show like the undercurrents, which are the emotions. Since it is a deck that explores color, emotion, and intuition, and the modern Nirvana Oracle is a bit more spiritual. So it has a wider array of keywords and things that could apply in many different situations. Like transcendence. Like you can get a lot out of kind of framing the oracle with the tarot. So using the tarot to look into what the oracle is trying to relay, rather than using the oracle to relay what the tarot is trying to, you know, what story the tarot is trying to tell. But this is all theory because I haven't yet read with these two decks together. I think I have paired the Prism Oracle with the white Numen before. I can't recall though. Maybe just like a quick attempt just to play around with them, but I haven't really used the white Numen with much Oracle decks because I recently got it, so I've been trying to get to know it, acquaint myself with how it reads. And now that I feel like I understand its voice, I do want it to have a companion in any case where I would like to use an oracle deck with my tarot readings. So yeah, I am liking how these pair visually, and I think I have a framework set up in my mind already about how they can be read with together. So yeah, this is a yes from me. I love how they look together, and I think I would enjoy the experience of reading with it, but we'll see how accurate or how well they can relay each other's message. So yeah, that was the Modern Nirvana Oracle, and we'll move on to the next. Our next deck is the Loputyn Oracle. Now this oracle is a bit on the, how would I say, I don't want to say vulgar, but it does feature a lot more nudity and positions that are suggestible, but the art itself is gorgeous. I don't know if I'll be able to show them all here because of YouTube's rules, but I think we can get a good amount in. So right off the bat, I love how the colors look just from this pairing of these first 3 cards. I think that I am definitely going to make this one of the main pairings. Let me just make sure. Oh, here we have a suggestible image. We'll just skip that one. Okay, I think that's I hope that's better. But the colors, the art, everything about this is a big yes for me. I love that this is borderless because it really immerses you in the imagery. And this deck does not have any keywords, so we are gonna have to consult the guidebook for the message, or just use it to kind of set the theme in our mind based on what we see. Which I do have another deck that is not an oracle deck by any means, but I do like to play on imagery as the message instead of just, you know, keywords. Ooh, that one is a lot of nudity. Yeah, instead of just keywords. So I do think that these look really, really good together. How they read is a whole other ballpark. I mean, they may look good together, but am I gonna get the messages I need? Because based on this image alone, you don't get a lot unless you consult the guidebook. So I don't think that this is a deck I would use for client readings a lot. Maybe in some situations, maybe if I'm doing like a general reading or something. Yeah, like a general reading instead of a reading where they come to me with a question, because I do like to read intuitively and not solely consult the guidebook for the message, even though I don't have any problem consulting the guidebook for messages. But sometimes it can just hamper the flow for me because I do have a set amount of time to get into a reading, get into all the different parts, and sometimes I don't want to always reach for the guidebook to have to interpret. But it's not something that I mind that much. So that's my only drawback, the lack of keywords. But at the same time, I love that it lacks the keywords because the emotions, the imagery can evoke, or the thoughts can stretch far beyond what a keyword could provide. And the guidebook does provide the keyword for it. So I could simply look in the guidebook, get the keyword, and then formulate my reading around that keyword if I so desired, instead of just looking at the message in the guidebook. Should I show this? But yes, some of the images really work well at evoking emotions and stimulating the intuition, and then some of them don't say much to me at all, like that card we saw where it was just a wolf. Let me find it. Yeah, oops, where it was just a wolf. Like, I don't get much out of this card, but cards like this, or the card we had before it, this one, very, very evocative, very, very mentally stimulating. There are a lot of messages that can come true just from looking at the image. So yeah, I think these pair beautifully together. I love how the colors play with each other. I love that the art, even though it's not really that similar, it complements each other very, very well, because it has this cartoonish feel, and just the way it has been approached, the art has been approached, works really well with each other, in my opinion. So yeah, I love this pairing. It might be more of a personal pairing though, because this oracle deck is one of my personal decks that I use solely for messages for myself, or for like really close people that are really close to me, because I like to have them read and digest the messages in the guidebook, because the messages are amazing. They are so touching. They're filled with depth and can bring up a lot of emotions or feelings just from how it's written. It's very, very beautifully written, and I absolutely love it. But I do feel like it's something that is more of a personal experience rather than something that I use for clients, because I feel like you just have to have the book to consult it and really digest what the imagery is trying to relay when you like compare it with the message in the book. So this is definitely a pair that I would use in my own personal practice, or for people that are closer to me, so that they can fully immerse themselves in reading and experiencing that message. Okay, and that was the Loputyn Oracle. Beautiful, beautiful deck, one of my absolute favorites, and I'm glad that it looks good with this tarot deck, because I absolutely love both of them. So for them to love each other, or well, hopefully love each other, but I love them together, it's amazing. So the next deck I think may look good with this is the Wandering Heart Oracle, and I think the colors would look really well together. The art, I'm not so certain of. I feel like the art of this oracle is a bit simpler compared to this tarot, but you never know, maybe it could work. Let's see. I think the colors for sure would play well, because it is a very vibrant deck. Okay, I'm not mad at this so far. And we have that simple keyword again. The art is certainly very different. I think that's the one thing that would kind of get me, or get to me. But oh, I do love how the colors play together. I'm not mad at it, actually. I think they look quite nice. and we have different scenes to play off of, so it is really applicable to reality. This oracle, it's not so much of a spiritual deck, I would say, or not solely based on spiritual aspects. There's a lot of realism that we can rely on to, well, in client readings, because I do use this deck mostly for client readings and personal as well, but I have decks that I prefer for my personal practice. So I think that this could work really well together when it comes to clients and them, you know, noticing their own things in the cards, because it's really easy to apply it to their life. I do think they complement each other. Yeah, I really like this, actually. I feel like I don't have as much to say about this one as previous cards or decks, but I do like it. It's just quite easy to accept it. Not much to say about it, because there's not many drawbacks in my opinion. Like, the only issue I would have is that it's a different art style, but it doesn't even bother me. Like, it looks fine together. Doesn't look like it's just strange or a strange pairing. So yeah, this was the Wandering Heart deck, the Wandering Heart Oracle deck, and it's a yes for me. They look beautiful, and I'm glad that this deck has a nice pairing. I don't know if I pair this deck with a lot of my other decks, because I don't have that many that really match this style, but it does match this tarot deck, the White Numen, really well, even if the style is different. So yeah. Okay, so our next deck is the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. This is an astrology oracle deck, and it's very vibrant, very colorful. The most I could say that is different with these two decks is that the Oracle is more of like a vintage art style, whereas the Tarot is way more modern and way more cartoonish. Oops, forgot this. But yeah, I think that they look really great together. And in regards to reading with them, the Oracle has events, like a section for events to look out for when a card pops up, and that's how I typically like to utilize this Oracle when I pair it with any tarot decks, because the querent tends to really resonate with more so the event meanings. It also comes with like the personal interpretation of the card in like an astrological sense. So if someone has a certain placement or certain energies, that would come out. But I don't typically use the personal meanings when I'm reading with this deck, because not everyone would really resonate, because it's quite detailed, and usually targeted towards people that may have that astrological energy in your chart. And in some instances, some of the details could apply to a person's situation, but it's not always the case, and it is a very, very long read. The guidebook is very detailed, which is good, but it is a very, very long read. So I don't really have the time to kind of sit and go through every single, explanation for the card. So I tend to just look at what events may come up, what the querent could look out for with this deck. Though the deck is very visually vibrant, you have a lot of information to look at, to digest. It is not something that I tend to focus on because a lot of the imagery isn't really applicable unless like you have a vast and rich knowledge about symbols. So I tend to utilize the keyword or the astrological placements to draw conclusions about, what message could be coming through. And even then, once you kind of understand the astrological message of the card, I think it does become easier to kind of dissect the imagery and the symbols in the imagery. Well, for this, it would be a bit more difficult because you would require some amount of knowledge about it. And the guidebook doesn't go into extensive detail about what is being shown on the card, which that is kind of a bother to me because I do like when they explain why certain imagery or symbols were chosen. But I think that, getting acquainted with the energy of the cards and understanding the astrology can help to interpret the imagery. So that's what I look at first: the keyword, the astrological placements, and then the imagery last. But regardless, I think that the imagery does complement a lot of decks well, a lot of my more colorful decks. And it's not like it's impossible to draw information from the images because they do provide you with a lot of just content to interpret with the card. And each card is kind of, how do I explain it? They have a certain layout. So for the Venus cards, they're all gonna have a similar layout. The Moon cards are all gonna have a similar layout where it's like this large square and then this smaller rectangle at the bottom. As you see, all the Mercury cards would have this layout, which I don't know if that is supposed to be significant to astrology in any way. I'm not too certain. I have read the book, but it didn't mention any particular astrological associations between the layout and the astrology. It seems like a decision by the illustrator or the, I don't know, whoever worked on the deck. It seemed like that. But yeah, this combo I am very pleased with. I think it's beautiful, and they match really well. Okay, so the last deck is not really an oracle. It's postcards. They're postcards from Studio Ghibli, and I would just consider this a keywordless deck, but I did want to explore how these images would play with the tarot. It is a large amount of cards, and they're very big, so they're not easy to shuffle. So I don't know how I plan to use these together. But the added layer is that I know almost all of the movies shown on the cards, so I could apply that knowledge to a reading, you know, based on like what's happening in the scene, or you know, what I remember about the movie. But I thought that these would work well together because of that anime-ish, cartoonish vibe that the White Numen Tarot has, which it's more of a cartoonish vibe than anime vibe. But I still think that they will look good together because both decks are very colorful and has that, you know, distinct art style. So I think it would be really good to, you know, get some visual, get some different perspectives based on the scenes, what's happening in the movie, what that specific scene was about. It could tie into so many different things and help me to pick up on different things that, you know, I otherwise wouldn't think about. And then even if the scene doesn't provide the information, some bit of knowledge or some download could come into my mind about something that happened in the movie that maybe is standing out about the message that I'm seeing. So I could help to put it into words, understand. But then there's the problem of like not even remembering the movie. But you see, some cards it would be a bit more difficult to draw a message from, like this. Like that doesn't say much to me. And then others, yeah, they say a lot. But I do think that they look pretty together. I don't know much about the efficacy, but the beauty I can appreciate. I can definitely appreciate. And then maybe even my clients would get a message themselves from their intuition if they've seen any of these movies. To come to their own understanding or point out things that I wouldn't notice. It would be so amazing if they came up with a Studio Ghibli Oracle there. That would be awesome. Another thing I could do is create my own keywords for these cards and put them at the back because we do have space. It is a postcard, but would I want to write on them? I could write it in pencil so it's easily removable. it is a good idea. I could create my own oracle deck from them, you know, based on like the scenes, or you know, whatever keywords come to my mind when I look at the imagery. But yeah, I think they look really good together. And yeah, that was the 100 collectible postcards from Studio Ghibli. And that is all I have for you folks. I do have some more oracle decks coming soon too, to be specific, but they are going to be here after I have finished this video, uploaded this video. So perhaps I could do another video in the near future, just pairing the oracle decks with my tarot decks. I think that would be fun. But this is all I have for you now, all the decks, the oracle decks in my collection that I thought would pair well with this tarot deck. And I would love to hear your opinions on any of the pairings, or any recommendations you may have for what you pair this deck with, or what you think it would look good with based on, you know, the imagery or whatever other aspect you think would align with your suggestion. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found perhaps a new pairing that you wouldn't have thought of, or a new deck to invest in for your collection. And thank you for giving me your time and for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.